You could be the one who leases the 3-3 OI this weekend, walks into any room, lets the badge do the talking. Or you could be the one nobody notices, the one who moves $40 into an account with no name and never mentions it. Somewhere down this road is a version of you who already knows how to get rich without anyone catching on. Tonight, you're neither one yet. You're just standing in a hallway, keys already in your hand, $211.40 sitting in checking until Friday, jacket zipped against the cold, deciding which one walks through your aunt's front door. The weight of looking rich. The porch door opens before you knock, and the smell of your aunt's kitchen, sage, butter, something sweet already going wrong in the oven, pulls you inside before the cold can follow you in. Your cousin Danny is by the food already, plate loaded, laughing with his mouth full. He's got a new watch. You clock it before you clock him. Steel case, black leather strap, the kind of clean face that doesn't need to say anything because everyone already knows what it costs. A Cartier tank must, the quartz one, a little over $3,000. He doesn't mention it. He doesn't have to. He rests his wrist on the counter, reaching for a roll, and lets it sit there a second longer than reaching requires. Traffic wasn't bad? He asks you, and you say no, it wasn't, and you're both lying about something. Just not the same thing. Later, out front, he shows you the car. New lease, this year's 330i. That specific blue that photographs better than it looks in person. He tells you the monthly like it's a joke he's already laughed at. 6-something, insurance not included. And you nod like you're impressed, because you are, and because some part of you is already doing math you didn't ask your brain to do. You think about the bag sitting in your cart right now, saved for later, untouched for 6 days. A Coach tabby, the 26, camel leather, $295 you don't have sitting loose, but you do have a store card with room on it and a promotional rate that turns into 24% the second you're late by even a day. You've done this math before, you just haven't let yourself finish it. Standing on Danny's mother's porch, watching him check his own reflection in the car window before he even opens the door, something in you goes quiet. Not judgment, you don't have the right to that. Standing here in your own borrowed confidence. Just a kind of weightlessness, like watching someone hold their breath underwater and not knowing if they're swimming or drowning. You go back inside. Your aunt asks how work is, and you say fine and you mean it the way you meant it in the car. Technically, barely, for now. Danny finds you again near the dessert table, watch catching the kitchen light, and he says something about how you should treat yourself more. Life's short, and you laugh because it's easier than telling him you've been treating yourself to nothing for 3 years and calling it discipline. You don't buy the bag that night. You close the tab on your phone in the bathroom, alone, door locked, nobody watching, and it doesn't feel like a victory. It doesn't feel like anything. That's the part nobody prepares you for. That the right decision, in the moment, feels exactly like the wrong one. Quiet, small, unwitnessed. Driving home, headlights sliding across empty fields, you keep thinking about the watch. Not wanting it exactly, wanting what it seemed to prove. You pull into your driveway a little after 10, and before you go inside, you sit there a minute with the engine off, phone in your lap, thumb hovering over your banking app. Not to spend anything, just to finally look. The number you finally look at. The app takes a second to load. That small spinning wheel doing its little turn while you sit in the dark driveway with the engine ticking as it cools. Then, the number sits there in front of you, plain, unstyled, no red or green to soften it. $211.40. Below it, the other number. The one you've been avoiding for longer than 6 days. $6,410. The balance on the card you opened your second year out of college, back when a promotional rate felt like free money instead of a countdown. You do the interest math without meaning to. Almost 24%. It's not a number sitting there. It's a hand around your ankle. You go inside. You don't turn the kitchen light on, just the one over the stove, because there's something about half dark that makes it easier to be honest with yourself. You think about your coworker Alina, 2 desks over, the one who brought her lunch every day for a year and let people assume it was about the diet. 6 months ago, she got promoted. Better title, better pay. and she never moved out of the apartment she shares with her roommate, never got the one bedroom near the water everyone expected, kept driving the same dented Corolla. You'd thought it was strange, maybe even a little sad, until she mentioned once, offhand, restocking the break room coffee, that she'd started putting money into something called a Roth IRA. You hadn't asked more. You didn't want her to know you didn't know what that was. You know now. You looked it up on your lunch break weeks ago and never did anything with it. It's still just a tab you closed. Tonight, sitting at your kitchen table with the stove light throwing your shadow long across the wall, you open your laptop instead of your phone. Fidelity's site is plainer than you expected. No confetti, no motivational language, nothing that resembles the ads you scroll past. Just fields. Name, social security number, bank account, $50. You could have done more. You have, technically, more sitting in checking than that. But 50 feels like the number that won't wake you up at 3 a.m. regretting it. And some part of you understands, without being told, that this isn't about the amount. It's about whether you do it at all. You hit submit before you can talk yourself out of it, the way you might rip off a bandage. And then you just sit there. No confirmation email lands with music. No one texts you congratulations. The number in your account goes down by $50 and nothing else in the room changes. Not the light, not the silence, not the mail still sitting unopened on the counter. You almost feel foolish for expecting to feel something, but you close the laptop and sit with your hands flat on the table, and underneath the nothing, there's a smaller, stranger feeling you don't have a name for yet. Not pride, not relief, something closer to the feeling of locking a door you forgot you'd left open. Upstairs, your phone buzzes. Danny, probably, tagging you in something? You don't look. You're already thinking about next Tuesday and the $50 after that and what it might mean to do this so many times it stops feeling like a decision at all. The math you run in silence. The raise comes on a Thursday buried in an email with a subject line too boring to prepare you for what's inside it. $4,000 more a year? Not enough to change your life. Enough to change your grocery store if you wanted. You don't tell anyone right away. You sit with it through lunch, through the drive home, through dinner you eat standing at the counter, and somewhere in there the temptation starts working on you the way water works on stone. Slow, patient, certain. You open your phone and look at apartment listings you have no business looking at. A one-bedroom 2 blocks from the water, the kind Alina never took. $650 more a month than what you're paying now. You close it. You open the car listings instead. A 330i, same blue as Danny's, sitting on a dealer lot 40 minutes away. $611 a month, the site says, before insurance, before the down payment you don't currently have. You do the math anyway because some part of you needs to see it in numbers before you can say no to it out loud. Your Civic is paid off, has been for 14 months. It rattles a little over 60, and the seat cover is starting to crack, but it starts every morning, and it owes nothing to anybody. If you took that $611, the exact number the lease would cost you, and put it into an index fund instead, tracking something like the S&P 500, averaging what it's averaged over the last 30 years, you'd be looking at something over $1 million by the time you're 60. Not instantly. Not this year, not next year. Just quietly, every month, compounding while you drive the same rattling Civic to the same job. You don't say any of this to anyone. You especially don't say it to Danny, who calls that weekend just to talk. And somewhere in the conversation mentions he's thinking about upgrading again already. Maybe the M34OI this time. And you say that sounds nice and you mean it, and you also don't feel a single pull toward it anymore. That surprises you more than the math did. Monday morning, you log into your work benefits portal on your break, the fluorescent light in the break room humming over your head, and you bump your 401k contribution from 6% to 15%. The system asks you to confirm. You do. Somewhere, distantly, this is a step toward this year's contribution ceiling. $24,500, a number so large it doesn't feel real. Not yet. Not on your salary, but what you actually feel is smaller than that. Just the quiet click of a decision being made without an audience. You take the raise, unchanged in your account, and split it, a little more into the Roth, a little more automated into savings, The rest absorbed so completely into your existing life that nobody around you would ever notice you got one. Alina notices, though, not the raise, you never mention it, but something in how you talk about money now, careful and specific in a way you weren't before. She asks casually, restocking the break room coffee again. If you've started something, you say you're just being smarter. She nods like she already knew, like she's been waiting for you to catch up to something she found a while ago. You go back to your desk and open your accounts again, just to look the way you've started doing most days now. Not out of anxiety this time, but out of something closer to checking on a plant you're not sure is growing yet. It is. You just can't see it from here. 3 weeks later, the growth stops mattering because something else breaks first. The water heater explodes. The sound wakes you before the feeling does. A low groan from somewhere beneath the house, like something giving up. By the time you're downstairs, sock feet hitting the cold concrete of the utility closet, water is already spreading across the floor in a slow, dark sheet. You stand there in your t-shirt at 6:15 in the morning, staring at a water heater that's decided, without asking you, that tonight is the night it dies. The plumber who comes out that afternoon doesn't waste time being gentle about it. Units shot, corroded tank, not worth patching. $2,400, parts and labor, and that's if you want it done today, instead of living without hot water for a week. You say yes. You don't have a choice that feels like a choice. That night, you open your accounts the way you've started doing most nights, except this time, your stomach does something different when the numbers load. Checking. $490, most of it already promised to rent. The brokerage account, $11,200, sitting there in shares of an index fund that doesn't care what your water heater did to you this morning. Your thumb hovers over the sell button. Just a partial sell, you tell yourself. Just enough to cover it. You've done the math 100 times about what this account will become in 30 years. You haven't once done the math on what happens if you touch it now, mid-climb, mid-sentence, before it's had time to become anything. Your phone buzzes. A message from a client you've been doing freelance design work for on the side. The quiet arrangement that's been adding a couple hundred extra dollars some months. Money you've mostly let sit and grow instead of spend. The message says they're going a different direction. No more work, no explanation owed to you, and none given. You sit on the edge of your bed with the phone in one hand and the laptop open on your knees, both numbers glowing at you. And for the first time since the Roth IRA, since the $50, since all those quiet Tuesdays nobody clapped for, you feel the whole thing might have been a mistake. Not morally, practically. Like maybe the people driving the 330i and carrying the Cartier had it figured out after all, because at least their money was doing something they could touch when the floor gave out under them. You think about calling Danny, not to ask for money. You'd never, just to hear someone tell you it's fine, the way people do. You don't call him. Some part of you already knows what he'd say, and some part of you doesn't want the comfort if it means explaining the account you've never mentioned to him. Instead, you sit there long enough for the moment to lose some of its heat. You open a different tab, the savings account you built for exactly this, the one you funded a little at a time. Boring, unglamorous, sized to cover about 2 months of your real expenses. $1,900, sitting there for no reason anyone would notice, waiting. It's not enough to cover everything, but it's enough to cover the water heater without selling a single share. You close the laptop. The floor of the utility closet is still wet. The account is still smaller than you'd like. Nothing about tonight feels like a victory the way finishing something usually does. But somewhere underneath the exhaustion, quiet as the number itself, you notice you didn't sell. You just don't know yet what that decision costs you to keep making. What you don't post. The account recovers slower than the water heater does. Hot water comes back in a day. The $11,200 takes longer to feel like yours again, even though you never touched it. Danny posts a video that Sunday. Him and his girlfriend on a balcony somewhere. Turquoise water behind them. The caption, just 3 words and a location pin. Amalfi Coast. You watch it twice before you understand why you're watching it twice. Not envy exactly. Something more like checking a wound to see if it still hurts. It does a little. You let it. You don't comment. You don't screenshot it to send to anyone with a joke attached. You just set the phone face down on the counter and go back to unloading the dishwasher, and by the time you're done, you've mostly forgotten the shape of what you felt. At work, Alina catches you in the stairwell, the one nobody uses because the elevator's faster, and asks how you're doing. Really asking, not the hallway version. You tell her about the water heater. You don't tell her you almost sold. You're not sure why you hold that part back, except that saying it out loud might make it more true than it already was. You didn't touch it, though, she says, like she already knows the ending. No, you say. I didn't. She nods once, the way you've noticed she does when something lands the way it's supposed to, and doesn't make a bigger deal of it than that. It's the closest thing to a celebration either of you has for something like this. No cake, no congratulations, just two people standing in a stairwell, and one of them knowing exactly what the other one didn't do. That weekend, you drive to your cousin's place, not Danny's, your other cousin Renata, who works nights at a hospital and has never once mentioned a number to you in her life. Her house is small, older, the kind with a driveway that cracks a little more every winter. She's put a new roof on it this year. You ask her how she managed it, and she shrugs and says she's been putting money into an LLC, Sable Ridge Holdings, she calls it, half joking about the name, that owns a small rental property 2 towns over. Nobody knows about it. Not her mother, not her coworkers, just her, and now you. Why keep it quiet, you ask? Because the second people know, she says, they get opinions. You think about that the whole drive home, about how the people you've told anything to, the Roth, the 401k bump, even the water heater, have mostly been the ones who already understood, who didn't need it explained or defended. Everyone else just gets a version of you that seems fine. Because it is fine, mostly, in the way that matters. You start noticing how often the loudest people around you talk about money like a performance, and how the quietest ones don't talk about it at all. You start doing something small the next time you're in the drive-thru, paying for the car behind you, $4 and change, gone before you've fully decided to do it. Nobody thanks you. Nobody even knows. It doesn't feel like generosity so much as evidence. Proof to yourself that the money is a tool now and not a trophy you're polishing for someone else to admire. You go quiet on social media without deciding to. You just stop opening it as often, and nobody notices that either. Renata's roof holds through the next storm. Yours does too, eventually, in its own way. The account climbing back past where it was, then past where it's ever been. All of it happening on a schedule nobody but you is watching. You start to understand that the silence isn't hiding something. It's protecting it. The house on nobody's radar. The realtor's name is Colette, and she's shown you 4 houses already this month, and every time she pulls up outside one, she watches your face instead of the house. Like she's learned, that's where the real answer shows up first. This one's on a quiet street behind Davis Islands in Tampa. Not on the water, not close enough to see it from the porch, but close enough to smell it some mornings when the wind turns. 3 bedrooms, a kitchen that needs updating, $650,000, which 2 years ago would have sounded like a number from someone else's life. 2 streets over, closer to the water, there's a listing you looked at once out of curiosity and never mentioned to anyone. 4 bedrooms, a dock, glass everywhere, just under $4 million. You remember standing in the open house, your shoes too casual for the marble, a listing agent describing the primary suite's Italian tile like it might change something in you. It didn't. You left after 12 minutes. You put the offer in on the smaller house the following week. Renata helps you move a couch up a narrow staircase, both of you sweating through your shirts, laughing about nothing in particular, and afterward you sit on the bare living room floor eating pizza off the box because you haven't bought a table yet and you're in no hurry to. Danny comes by a few weeks later, after you've settled in, and he walks through slower than you expect, quiet in a way that isn't like him. He doesn't ask what it cost. You don't tell him. He just stands in the kitchen for a second, running his hand along the counter and says, "It's nice, really nice," and you can tell he means it differently than he means most things. You still drive the Civic. It's got more miles on it now, a sound in the front end you keep meaning to get checked, and you have zero interest in replacing it. Not because you can't. The numbers, if you let yourself look at them, would surprise you. The Roth, the 401k, most years landing close to this year's 24,500 ceiling. The brokerage account that outgrew the water heater scare so completely you sometimes forget it ever happened. Renata's rental, still under Sable Ridge Holdings, still nobody's business but hers, and now a little bit yours. Since you went in on the second property with her this spring, none of it shows. That's the part that still surprises you some mornings. Standing in your kitchen with the counters that need updating, coffee in a chipped mug, looking exactly like someone who's doing fine and nothing more. You are doing more than fine. You just haven't found a reason to prove it to anyone, and somewhere along the way, you stopped looking for one. The dividends cover more of the mortgage than you expected them to, this early. Not all of it. Enough that some months you notice and other months you don't, which might be the entire point you were chasing without knowing it had a name. You think about Danny's watch sometimes, the Cartier, still on his wrist every time you see him. You don't want it anymore. You're not sure you ever really did. You think now you wanted what it seemed to promise, and you got something that looks nothing like it and does the job better. Some evening soon, sitting on your own back steps with the Tampa heat finally breaking, you'll try to explain all of this to someone. Maybe Renata, maybe no one. And you'll find there isn't much to say. No dramatic before and after. Just a long string of Tuesdays nobody watched, adding up to a life nobody would guess at from the driveway. That's the part you still haven't figured out how to put into words. The Tuesdays nobody watched. You never find the words for it. What you find instead is an ordinary Tuesday. Trash bins at the curb, coffee going cold, and the quiet understanding that you stopped performing your life somewhere, back around that water heater, without noticing the exact moment it happened. It wasn't the Roth. It wasn't the house behind Davis Islands. It was every time you closed the laptop instead of opening it to show someone. You'll feel the pull again soon. A leased hood ornament catching the light just right, asking what you're building toward and whether anyone's supposed to see it. Nobody has to. The account still dips some mornings. Your stomach still drops with it. You just don't reach for the sell button anymore. Somewhere tonight, someone's driving home with $211, 40 in checking, already rehearsing what they'll say when someone asks how things are going.